Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show. Hi, I'm Paul. I'll be your host this evening. Don't forget you can join us at 8 p.m. every Monday. Well, most Mondays. I try and make it every Monday to chat about the latest goings on in rugby. So those of you who are joining, don't forget you can join us on Facebook, YouTube or Twitter live, or you can catch the recording on the old podcast. Those of you catching the podcast, listen to audio, obviously won't be able to see my pretty face, but those of you on watching it live will be able to, and if you can probably see or watch the recording of the video, that is. Anyway, so I've got a bit of a black eye and a bruised nose. Unfortunately, on Saturday, I got randomly assaulted in the street, so and spent the rest of the day in hospital getting looked at. So I must admit, I've not seen all of that much rugby. I did watch the All Blacks game, but I haven't seen, and I've seen highlights of the Springboks game, but I've not seen the other one. So unless we have a late joiner come and join me, I won't be able to talk much about that game. But we will have a chat about the All Blacks game that happened, obviously, at the weekend. And we'll catch up also on the other international action from the weekend, from at least a results point of view. So on Saturday, before we had the Rugby Championship games, Samoa lost to Fiji 19-33 in the final round of that Pacific Nations series. Apparently, it's a series, not a Pacific Nations Cup on that one. And the other game in that one saw Japan beat Tonga 21-16. On there. Octon Wright says, yeah, sorry to hear that, Paul. Hope those responsible are held account. Yep, the police got hold of them, and it'll all go through the due process. I don't want to say any more about it because obviously it's going through because it's going to go through that piece of things. So yes, sorry, I mentioned what happened to your eye mate. So I got randomly assaulted in the street at the weekend. So one of those freak incidents that unfortunately can happen every now and again. So I'm all okay. Obviously, got the bruising that used to go down and a few aches and pains, but other than that, we'll be all right, and we'll recover okay on that one. And thanks for the kind comments in the live chat there. So yeah, it's a good win for Fiji and Japan at the weekend during those games. Also, Scotland took on Italy, beating them 25-13 as well. So a good start for Scotland in their post-Hogg era with Ollie. I've gone blank as to the guy's name, Smith, getting a go at the weekend in that 15 jersey. Namibia got beaten by the Argentinian 15, or the second team for Argentina B, 27-34, and Uruguay saw off Chile 26-25. There, Chile scoring a late one to make it a 1-point game. And zooming in with on kind of to save the day is Steve. How are you doing, sir?
Just about, not too bad. Yourself? It's been a busy day. We'll just get the camera working properly. There we go. Yep. Oh, good. Yourself? Thanks. I'm here. I'm late. But I made it.
I'm surviving. A little bit sore, but I'm surviving. So all good. All good.
It's all falling apart. That's right.
On that one, you're falling apart. Oh, dearie me.
No, just that. Look at that. Nice. I watched. If you talked about the Scotland game at all, I just saw someone put it in the comments there.
I've just literally just mentioned the results from the weekend of the international games that weren't the Rugby Championship. But no, if you've already got something to say about it, go for it, because I've not really got anything to say about any of those games at all, except that Ollie Smith got to start in place of Stuart Hogg. So with Stuart Hogg's retirement, so congratulations to him, giving him the first bite at that 15 jersey that I think most expect Kingholm to kind of own initially in that starting team, but obviously they need to get a bit of depth there. But some comments from you then about that. What you want to start on the Scotland beating Italy?
Well, I watched that game because it was in between the Bledisloe game and the Rugby Championship two matches. So it was quite nicely timed to be able to watch that one on the side as it pushed on through. But it was terrible conditions for a game of rugby. It was drizzly and just messy, and it made for that sort of game as well. I thought Italy probably take their heads held pretty high from that encounter. I thought they played fairly well. I thought they matched up with Scotland for probably 60 minutes of that game. They led at half time. They took their chances, but both sides threw away a lot of ball. The tries were quite opportunistic, I thought, for Scotland, especially that first one, a little kick, no one marking, seeing a big, was he a back row that scored that last try there? Just, when do they score sidestep tries like that and make people look silly? But it was quite, I think it was a game that Italy could have won if they could have applied for 80 minutes. I think they fell off quite drastically at the end, but it was poor conditions for a game. And both sides were, I think, fairly poor in all overall the whole 80 minutes of that month. But yeah, it was good to see them play. Good to see Scotland play, because I've not seen Scotland come out for quite some time, or Italy. And I think they've both got some quite quality, dangerous players, especially like 10s operate pretty well. Tommaso Allen, I thought, played pretty well for the Italians, directing the game for them. So yeah, not enough to make you go, oh, they're going to be a threat, to any big nations later on this year, but enough to say that they're going to hold their own, and they could get good, or get upset someone later on. They can improve. Could get good. I'm tentative to say they're going to be great, or they're going to upset a big nation. But I think they'll by watching that, I think they're going to do what we expect them to do and nothing more.
Oh, look! Italy joining the Six Nations were showing that they lots of promise, zero results. Which, when you look at their group at the Rugby World Cup with France and New Zealand, they'll lose to those two, and then they'll win their games against the two tier two nations, which I've forgotten who are in their pool. So yes, so was it a second, third B team selected for Scotland? Look, looking at the Scotland lineup, there are a lot of players there who were being trialled, but you've also got players like British and Irish Lions. You've got Price and Harris were both playing. I mean, Darge just played well, perhaps not first choice. Stein, he's the first kind of reserve there on the wings as well. Then Darcy Graham, he's a starter. So look, there are a few starters, but yes, there were a lot of replacement players there for Scotland in that one.
And a standout too, Darcy Graham. I thought he was considerably better than anyone else on that paddock. You could tell he's another level player. That guy, he's good. Simon,
let us know that the Tonga Samoa game will be on at 2 p.m. this Saturday on free to air on TVNZ1. But I think doesn't that clash with the All Blacks game? Oh no. This weekend, which is at 2:35, so a clash with the All Blacks game. So an afternoon game, folks, because obviously when we're down there in Dunedin in the Tupperware box, we've got to play under the nice sunshine.
Can't let the rain get in. Jeez.
So yes, you don't want to let the rain get in. That's true. That is true. Down there. Did you catch any of the other games, international games, apart from the Rugby Championship?
I caught the end 10 or so minutes of the Tonga-Japan game as well after the All Blacks match, which was frenetic. That was probably the best 10 minutes, I think, by the sounds of it, to tune into. Both sides could have put that game cleanly away in that last 10 minutes, but neither did it. It ended up pretty much as it was when I started watching it. But gee, they can run. I mean, you talk about like Scotland and Italy are pretty what's the way to put them? But a standard sort of rugby team. They do their basics. They're quite structured in the way they play. But like Tonga, oh man, there's very little like structure when the ball goes into those broken areas. They don't try to reset things back to any structure. They just go, and I mean they can go. In Japan too for in their defense they can go too. So exciting two teams. I think if I was looking at danger, which every game I watch now, I looking forward to the World Cup. I say Japan and Tonga have a lot more threat to me than a Scotland or an Italy if I was in their pool. So just to the styles they play, if it breaks down and if they start to flow and doing the things that will rattle big nations, they have the capabilities. Where I think Tonga and Italy are going to play that more. Scotland and Italy are going to play that more structured game, which other sides will be able to deal with quite comfortably.
Yep. Dr. Rice was asking, actually, going back to the Scotland game, is outside the selection window for Scotland, so only players from the local comp? No, look, I mean, the majority of Scotland's players play in the URC, so they do have access to them if they want to. This was more a matter of wanting to actually look at the other players and give those players an opportunity, because they didn't do that during the Six Nations. It was pretty much their first choice team, I think, for pretty much every game there. So look, no, it's more about giving other players an opportunity than it was about having players not available for that one. So those are the kind of a quick look at the non-Rugby Championship games. So yeah, we had two games this weekend for the Rugby Championship, with the All Blacks taking on the Wallabies in Bledisloe Cup 1 over there in Australia. At the MCG, which I was a bit surprised at, to be honest with you, because normally they don't play at the MCG. There are three kind of grounds there in Melbourne, and they normally play at one of the other two grounds. I mean, even the British and Irish Lions last time they toured in Australia didn't play at the MCG. They played at the other AFL ground that can be covered. And because I actually was at that game 10 years ago now, and so the Lions are going to play at the MCG next time. So to get an 80,000 plus, was 84,000 crowd, I thought was really impressive for that game in what is an AFL town as well. Yeah,
that was a good effort, wasn't it? It just goes to show that they'll support whatever they throw out there on the field. You wouldn't think there'd be much huge attraction to go see the Wallabies, but I guess when you got Eddie Jones talking up a storm, not going to France for his croissants and stuff like that, then why wouldn't you get behind them and think that they're going to topple the undefeated side from the competition? But yeah, it was great to see. It's old historical, I guess, stadium, but packed house, 80,000 people plus is huge numbers. It's good for the game to see that sort of crowd there.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, as Simon says, 20,000 short of a formal sellout. Even so, it was full enough. You didn't think, oh my God, they're playing to an empty stadium like we do with a lot of Super Rugby games. That was a good. I think half the crowd were Kiwi expats. Who cares at the end of the day?
Yeah. It's a bit sad when you're sitting there watching an Australian game and you hear an All Blacks chant going around when they're in Melbourne. It's like, what am I watching?
But I mean, just good. Yeah, who cares whether they're expat Kiwis or not? It's great to see that one. Yes, the AFL game one night before had 100,000 in there. Absolutely, that's what it can. That's what it can hold. And well done to AFL for filling it. But I think they will be filling it for the British and Irish Lions in 2 years' time on that one. The LB says. He was impressed that Australia could hang with New Zealand as long as they did. I don't think they're far from where they need to be for the World Cup. They definitely have the players, barring injury. Look, I mean, for Australia, I think they started well. And then one of the comments we had earlier, I think, from LB was that he thought that the Wallabies lacked fitness. I think there was a bit of that, but I think there was also an element of we've thrown everything at them and it isn't working. We're not getting points. So you get dispirited and you're running out of gas. And yeah, the Wallabies definitely faded. Look, a couple of injuries, particularly to their captain, El Toa, who is unfortunately out now for the Rugby World Cup, I believe. I think I've read. And then also to lose Tupu, who just come back from injury as well, was a real shame for them. So yeah, a position of prop there, which we think, or you could say, they have strength. But unfortunately, not once you've lost a couple of players like that.
Oh, that was huge. I think that messed up their whole plan, their whole game plan with the substitutes and the structure of how they played as well. Losing the first one just kind of threw everything out, but didn't it? Losing out Alatoa like that, but then to poor old Tupou, he never looks like he's ever 100%, does he? The poor guy. I enjoy him. I think he's a great player, but he always looks like something's wrong. But that threw them completely out. They were swapping players around and putting players that did them in the end. That did finish them off, especially I think at the end. But the players are there. They were never really in a controlling position of that game where they'd want to be to try and play their game. They're always kind of playing catch up on the match. But yeah, they had standout players. The game plan went to pack, and it kind of just summed up their night when they just ran out of ideas a bit.
Yeah, ran out of ideas and steam. When the scrum started going back, so we didn't have a scrum for the first 20 minutes, I think it was, and then when and the first couple they went well, and then they went backwards, and that was a problem. The other prop, Bell, who came back. Now look, Bell, he's been a cracking player at Super Rugby, and is definitely one of the up and coming guys, one of the up and coming props around. Again, he unfortunately has had injuries. I think probably last year, I think he had quite a big injury, so perhaps hasn't been on some people's radar as much as you would expect. But he is a cracking player, and we will be fun watching him in the years to come. So look, the All Blacks. This, I think we talked last week, and I was saying that this was that there were a couple of jerseys up for grabs. One of those was the 11 jersey with Mark Talia, but he kind of took firm hold of that jersey and showed us why Foster has faith with him as being that first choice in the 11 jersey in the first couple of games. Look, I think this was bar Sam Cane getting injured. This was the All Blacks' first choice team, and I think Mark Talia stood up and showed us why.
I think he'll still be under threat when Leicester comes back. I'm not 100% sold on him in that position. I was kind of intrigued as to the game plan they had with his wing. He probably had about 15 carries of about 300 centimeters over a 10-minute period, because they just kept hammering on that short side, which was all part of the game plan. But I kind of felt sorry for him as a winger who likes a bit of space and a bit of time and to move around players. Just kept getting pigeonholed into this little 1 meter channel next to the sideline. He did suffer a bit because of that, but hey, he did nothing wrong there. He took the ball in, he recycled it, and he brought up another phase, which is about all you can really ask of a winger to do there in that situation. But yeah, he got a big break through the middle later on in the matchup. Didn't do anything wrong, so he certainly raised the stocks, that is for sure. But if anything, it just creates a bit more depth for us on that left side, which is, like you say, it's the area that was a bit of question marks about. But he was solid enough, but bizarre as to probably why he got so much ball in that area, period, with a meter room. You've got a stat though.
Yeah, there was. I will go through his stats. But Mark Talia just 17 carries, 127 meters, 5 clean breaks, 9 defenders beaten, 1 offload. 5 clean breaks is the same number of clean breaks as the rest of the team put together. 3 for Will Jordan, 1 for Scott Barrett, and 1 for Dalton Papulehi. Mark Talia had a very good game. As you say, at first, New Zealand played a lot down the blind side on both sides. They decided, right, we're playing in the tram lines. We're not going to the middle of the pitch at all. Apart from it didn't help us when there was one pass that went straight out on the full early in the game. It was interesting that they were going to hammer that short side, make sure that the Wallabies had to defend it properly for the rest of the game, knowing that it was going to be that they couldn't sort of bring extra players onto the open side, thinking that it's going to come back open again. And then in that second half, you saw Talia coming in off his wing, playing off sort of Rich Mwanga, as quite a bit, and that's where I think he got most of his clean breaks. He also got clattered a couple of times as well, but he kept coming, which is good to see.
Yeah, he did. I think the good thing about that first, the half at least anyway, was the amount of actual good defense there was in that game. There was obviously try one was a pinnacle of that, but there was a lot of just good, heavy driving tackles, like the old-fashioned sort of style rib tacklers, just right in the middle, smashing them back, driving them back. And it was good to see. And it was good to see, like, no one was picking holes in it and saying that, oh, you can't do this, you can't do it. It was just good defense. And that was what I think was a highlight from those two sides, just the way they were playing and the way they were being aggressive in the tackle and actually not doing anything illegal, which, I mean, when do we even not see a yellow card these days? And then we got one after I said that anyway, but, it was good to see.
It was, and I know Hooper got named in the Planet Rugby's team of the weekend, and he's taken a bit of flack in our Rugby chat group, but he did make 30 tackles, which was, and I know there's been some talk here, LB, about picking second rowers as flankers, but boy, yeah, I think Holloway now is more a flanker than a lock. Yeah, sure, he's a jumping flanker, but yeah, Hooper 30 tackles, which is an impressive amount. Papule got through 26 himself, so yeah, both sevens getting through a chunk of work there on that one. The Nocturnal Rights saying 38% possession for the Wallabies in the end, and lost the territory battle. No wonder they were tired. No, absolutely. They got through a lot of work made. Come on, quick! Stats. I want to use a stat. Where are you? Reload, quick. 248 tackles they made out of an attempted 289. So 86%, so still a decent percentage there. Made a lot of tackles in that game. LB says, NZ, the only team peaking at the right time. Look, Steve and I have talked about this a lot off screen, and perhaps we'll do and we've been talking about doing a video about it on screen. But essentially, I think a lot of these teams don't need to be peaking now. A lot of these teams don't need to be peaking until the knockout stage of the Rugby World Cup. A lot of these teams can get through the pool stages without peaking. So you might say the All Blacks are peaking too early in some ways. You do have to. What's what I'm looking for here? Again, I wouldn't be reading too much in now. I think teams are looking at getting their squads right, their players right, that's so. Steve, are you concerned that other teams aren't peaking, and this is perhaps the All Blacks are going to walk the Rugby World Cup because they're peaking at the right time?
No, I don't think that's far from the case. I think, form. I think form is good for morale. Mental state. It certainly helps for that. Knowing you have the ability to win. I think that's what this is going to cost the Wallabies. Is they've lost so much now. Like they've lost against all three of the teams in this competition now as well. Are they going to meet them during the World Cup? Possibly. What's the last thing they think of? The last meeting, getting pipped at the post by the Pumas, getting destroyed by the Springboks, getting destroyed ultimately. 31 points is a pretty big thumping these days by the All Blacks as well. So mentally, it's great, and I think just winning as much as possible is good for that. But losing will take its toll, and you got to think for the Wallabies, this is probably the worst case scenario for them.
Yeah, look, there's definitely that. I mean, one thing I would like to also pull out, Nocturnal Rights mentioned Will Jordan's try was after 21 carries. You need the ball to beat us, he says. I think that's what you are seeing from this All Blacks team. There's been a tactical shift this season away from kicking for territory. We are not seeing the All Blacks kick for territory very much. Yes, they kicked more than the Wallabies. They kicked 25 times compared to 21, but you're seeing a lot of cross-field kicks. You're seeing a lot of kicks kicked for Will Jordan to chase and challenge. There are very few kicking it so far that it can't be competed for, particularly into opposition 22, and saying, hey, let's play some kick tennis and kickback. We're not seeing the All Blacks play kickback at the moment. So there is definitely that. There's definitely a tactical shift there around we want to have the ball because, you can't score with it if we've got it. Now, clearly, they still don't want to play in their own 22. And who does? But the style of kicking isn't so much for territory, is what I've seen. Any other kind of changes for either of these teams tactically you've seen this year?
I think patience probably is the biggest thing we've seen. I think from the All Blacks this year as it's gone on. They're just a lot more patient with the ball in hand, a lot more use, I think, of the forwards than we've probably seen from them in the past, which I guess comes with the patience as well as developing and building the plays they're working on. But that's got to be the number one thing. Just the ability to actually get those guys in going forward with the structure of they playing with the forwards is the main thing. And like you say, that little blindside thing that they kept doing against the Wallabies, I think that was very interesting to see because we've not really typically seen that for them or from them. Is that a Wallaby tactic? Is that a team tactic? We'll obviously see that in future weeks, I guess. But obviously thinking about things, changing things, working on things, developing things. Certainly they've changed up a lot for that. For the Wallabies, so I think before we move on from this game, credit will have to go. I have to put a lot of credit to Rob Valentini. I thought he had a storming matchup, and his work around the breakdown without the ball was huge for the Wallabies. Defensively, he just upset the All Blacks kind of flow from that breakdown. He got in the face of Aaron Smith a lot and tried to mess with his sort of game. He was just a menace around there. He was an enforceful menace as well. He was just destroying guys and causing complete mayhem. Did the All Blacks not protect that area enough? Possibly. Did they adjust? I think either they did or Valentini kind of moved away from that sort of tactic. But I think during that first half especially, he was exceptionally good at single-handedly doing it as well. It wasn't a team sort of work. He was doing it by himself, and he was making a massive mess to that quick ball, just to the rucks, to the breakdown, to the fringe defence, everything. He was the man on it.
Yeah, no, he was one of the guys who stood out for the Wallabies. And as you said, the Wallabies had a number of players who stood out. We're talking about the All Blacks. So a couple of players who did stood out we haven't mentioned yet. Scott Barrett really has taken his game to a new level this year, and forced his way in from being the bench lock to being a starting lock ahead of Whitelock, which is an impressive thing to do. So he really has taken his game to the next level. We had a question earlier also in the live chat saying, are the All Blacks going to stick with Rieko Ioane in the centres in the 13 jersey? Absolutely. As I say, this, to my mind, this is the All Blacks starting 15. And with the exception of Sam Cane at 7, and anyone else has got to force their way into this team. There may be, you say, Lessa Fainuku, who's been injured, hasn't had an opportunity to try and force his way into that 11 jersey. But everyone else, they would be, if the All Blacks make the World Cup, this is the team that will be starting that World Cup. I think so. Yeah.
If possibly, well, I picked a holes in the work of starting with Coles and Taylor at hooker, which I thought Takiaho would be my guy, but Cody Taylor was one guy I wrote down as my standout, one of my standouts for the All Blacks. I thought he had a great game. His basic skills, his line-out throwing was pretty good, and all that sort of stuff worked well. So he was his usual dynamic self around the field, but in terms of what he typically does slack down on about, I thought he was very, very good. So you can't complain too much if he is the starting guy, and if Takiaho comes off the bench, like you say, he's put the work in there. Is it someone else's job to topple him off now? Because you can't argue with how he performed in the weekend.
Yep. A couple of comments about the blindside move. Yep, or playing down the short side. The All Blacks did it get a bid against the box as well. It's one of those opportunities where they actually show their handling. And I do remember a try or a good, at least, meter gain by those quick little passes in left and right in that sort of 5 meter channel. Nocturnites points out that it's actually a good move to negate the rush defence, which is obviously expecting to use the open side of the pitch. So, yeah, some good points there in our live chats. Don't forget, folks, join us at 8 p.m. on Mondays on the old YouTube to make comments, or Facebook. If you're watching on Twitter, sorry, but Twitter doesn't allow you to make comments into the live chat. So, yeah, All Blacks heading in the right direction. A few comments that is to, I guess, not to get ahead of themselves in this one. Look, they are the most. They look like they know their first choice team. They look like they're playing well. Things heading in the right direction, but there is a long way to go before the Rugby World Cup final.
Just a couple of days.
Just a couple more days. So on to the second game. Unless there's anything else you want to say, we'll move on to the second game.
I'd just like to double down on your sentiment of Scott Barrett. I thought he was just crazy good. I've not seen a forward play such a dominant sort of role for a long, long time. And that first try, that tackle, I mean, put that on a highlight reel just forever. You know, in the year 3050, we should be still showing someone that try.
You mentioned that, but again, we saw something similar happen in the. I thought sort of in the Springboks games. I thought one of the Springboks locks came through and took out the scrum half. The scrum half just got the ball away though in their case. But yeah, something clearly that players are working on at the moment. Now, the Springboks beat the Pumas, and you could argue that this came down to because the Pumas couldn't kick sticks. But at the end of the day, that's not really the talking point from this game. The main talking point from this game is how many players left it who basically knocked out. Essentially, we had 3 players in the first half who were knocked out. 2 Argentinian players got their tackling wrong and got their heads in the wrong place. First one was the winger with Evan Netzbeth running over him for the try, got his head right in the wrong place and got knocked out. And then the other one decided that, or the other one got his head caught by Dwayne Vermeulen's hip, which is a rather large piece of body. And we saw both those players go off. So look, tackling technique is important, folks. Get your head out of the way is obviously the big message there. And I don't think anyone can. The only blame for those ones is on the tacklers, and those were what you would call rugby incidents. Mm-hmm. The other one, though, 11 seconds into the game. For those of you on the old podcast listening audio, we've got Steve shaking his head from left to right massively. We're told to keep low ball. You are told to keep that. It's fine, but you can still move your head to the side. You don't have to put your head in front of the player, as we saw the winger do. On the 11 seconds though. Look, I've forgotten the name of the player who was kicking the ball, but
Grant Williams,
Argentina. Thank you. The Argentinian on debut as well. Argentina player comes through, jumps up to. Well, you can say try to block, try to charge the ball down, but if you're that late, yeah, the ball's gone way over your hands. You're not getting anywhere near it.
No, he charged it down though. That's the argument.
Sorry.
He actually charged it down. Yes, he did get the
ball. Oh, wow, okay.
That's what the argument of this whole situation is. I'll just add this in. Okay. Is that they called it a rugby incident because he actually got the ball, which opens up the can of worms of saying that if you actually get the ball when you're doing anything like that, you're open to do whatever reckless tasks you want. So I'll leave the rest to you.
No, you've obviously got this better. So I've only seen highlights and bits on YouTube clip, bits on sort of Twitter clips and so forth. But he comes through and his hip just takes out Williams' head, and he's out cold straight away. The game continues with a ruck nearby, and the referee lets that until there's a penalty for Argentina. Now, first off, we saw later in the game when the player got hit by Dwayne Vermeulen's hip, Vaf de Klerk immediately backs away from the ruck, pointing at the player, waving his arms, telling the referee to stop the game. and did exactly the right thing. So well done, Faf, on that one. But the referee, if you've got someone out cold and there's play going on around them, you've got to stop play for play safety. You can't allow the play to continue with a player in a dangerous situation like that, to my mind. So first off, that's wrong, even if it is a rugby incident, which the other one was when he stopped play because Faf stood away. So from that one, it shouldn't be. Okay, I see what they're saying. He got the ball, therefore, hey, it was a legitimate charge down. Okay, yeah, I guess from in, I can see what they're saying, but you can't be taking someone's head off like that. That's a career ender, as we saw with Pat Lambie several years ago now, and that has to be a red, not just a yellow. Go off and review and is a red and replace in 20 minutes. That's a red. Out of here, you're down to 14 men for the rest of the game. It's very tough on the referee to make that call 11 seconds into the game. I understand that because the game's hardly started. You're impacting the rest of the game, but you've got to make. Unfortunately, that's a call you've got to make in my book. That we can't be allowing players to get injured like that.
Like we could just talk about this for the whole hour, really, if you want to, because I've watched this clip probably about 50 times because my mind on it has changed from not really knowing what's going on and just going with accepting what was happening to actually watching it, seeing what was going on, and being like, this isn't okay. Willie LaRue, actually, if you're going to credit Faf de Klerk for coming for that second player, Willie LaRue actually come running from way back in his own and goal near the other side of the field, running to that ruck, and was hitting the referee to tell him to stop the play when he's giving that penalty. He was literally doing, that guy that does those little clips like, look, the guy is out cold, man. He is out, gone completely. And yep. It baffles me how long he was almost standing on his hand. He was that close to the guy on the floor, to Grant Williams, and how he didn't notice that or see that baffles me for a start off. The whole, it's hardly a charge down when you're going into it facing the wrong way as well, isn't it, really? A charge down, you're going arms up to the ball to try and deflect the ball. If he had done that, he would have just collapsed on top of him. There would have been a pile of bodies and everyone would have got up and gone, oh, that was a bit messy. But the fact you're going and leading with your hip like that is bad for a start off. This goes over the whole weekend of whatever happened to the rule of probably the last 3 or 4 years, where if you hit someone in the head, you're gone. Doesn't matter what you're doing. It's gone. It's bad. It's at least a yellow. You clean out a ruck, you hit the head, it's a yellow. You tackle someone and it goes, oh, it's their neck, you're gone. You climb up and they land on their back or their neck, you're gone. And that just seems to have gone now completely from the game. Or this sort of stuff of people being hit in the head is okay again. And I don't understand where the consistency of this ruling has gone, because we've seen a few times in the All Blacks Wallabies game as well. There was a couple where there was head knocks and stuff, which aren't bad. And you kind of go, okay, that's all right. But that would have been minimal penalised, if not yellow carded, 2 years ago or a year ago. So the rule has kind of taken a backward step. And this is, to me, highlighting it massively, because that was dangerous as all kinds of danger. Like he was up and around not long later on the bench, but geez, like how many players are going to have career-ending injuries like that from stupid stuff, whether it's the 16th second or whether it's the 83rd minute? It really doesn't matter. But it's gone. The ref was poor. The decision-making was poor. The player care was poor. Everything about that whole first 20 seconds of that game was woefully poor. I could argue against it forever.
Yep, no, agreed. LB says we get emotional about this because this kind of thing literally killed Pat Lambie's career. He was throwing up every morning for a year and having headaches every day. Yeah, look, also Pat Lambie the following day or 2 days was flying off towards where the next test was. You're like, the whole thing around head injuries is you need to be in a place which has got minimal stimuli, i.e. do not use computers, do not use TVs, no screens at all. Taking somebody through an airport with everything that's going on, all the noise, is not good for somebody who is who's had a serious concussion. Well, they should be in a dark room or in a quiet room at the very least, where they can relax. And does that mean that a medical staff should have stayed with him in the hotel and book out the hotel room for the week? Yes, it does. That's what you shouldn't be putting these people on planes afterwards. I don't think you should be bringing them out onto the pitch, onto the bench, and surrounding them in an environment where there's lots of noise and things going on with the crowd that's going to be activating their brain. They should be in a quiet room where they can relax and let their brain rest and recover. What happened? I don't really personally, and this is as a non-doctor who has just read some stuff. I'm not saying I'm the most educated on this. I was amazed at the way that I disagreed with, not rather amazed, with the way that Pat Lambie was looked after post game as well on that one. And how a whole bunch of other players have come back and sat on the bench as well. I don't agree with that is what should be happening from what I have read and from what I understand to be what you're supposed to be doing to try and help someone recover. It'll be interesting to see whether Williams is on an airplane flying with the squad to the next location, or are they going to find a way that he can actually sort of rest and recuperate where he is. Dr. Wright says, by the same token, does that not apply to Geordie Barrett, whose red was rescinded as he was the jumping player? And this was about anything near the head, you have to go. And I totally disagree with Geordie Barrett's red getting rescinded. He should have, that was a red card, and it should have stayed as a red card. This idea that it was rescinded because he was doing it to balance himself, well, jump properly then. That doesn't involve you needing to balance yourself by putting your foot out in front of you, put bluntly. You get red card, you go, oh geez, I got the height wrong going into that tackle, sorry, it was a mistake. Well, tough, right? If you get your jump wrong, tough. If you don't execute the skill properly, even if it's an accident, we're not supposed to judge by intent. We're judged by the result. If you haven't practiced your skill well enough, well, then you should be then you should be what's what I'm looking for. Then you should be punished for that. So yeah, the Chris says it's now common medical practice to stay away from dark room and be in a bright place with as much stimulation as possible, maybe ahead of their time. Okay, I've not heard that because I think they still say don't have screens and things and that, so it's not as much stimulation as possible. It's more controlled stimulation rather than just purely no stimulation. But yeah, no, it's not. Well, I've not read that, so I can't agree with that personally. Onto the game then.
That was really sad about that starting passage. Not only did the time of that whole match is in the match started late, just like it did at the MCG, and then we had like 11 seconds before he got wiped out, and then it was about another 15 minutes or longer. I didn't even know how long it was till play got going, and then at the end of the half, where the player got knocked out, and he was probably about 10 or 15 minutes as well. That 80-minute game took 2.5 hours to complete. It was incredibly long how long that match took. But the saddest thing about the whole situation with Grant Williams is that while they were obviously taking care of him and getting him off the field as, you know, safely and that as like they do, they played a highlights package of him from his club ties URC games, and he is talented, man. I mean, he is. You watch that and you're like, boy, I want to see this kid play. And then it's like, I'm not going to get to see him play because he's out. But gee, it was so disappointing because he is lightning fast to the point of that you think he's a winger. He's skinning guys on the outside, down sidelines, wingers, and he's smoking them. And it's like, boy, what a talent. I hope he's okay because he looks like he's going to be a real fun player to watch.
The LBCA is probably the fastest Spock at the moment.
There you
I'm guessing, Paul, that you would have been assessed for concussion recently. Yes.
I've never thought of that. Yeah. Oh,
that is fair to say.
The medical expert.
Yeah, no, I'm not. As I said, I'm not claiming to be a medical expert, but from what I've read and what I've been told, screen time simulation is not a good thing if you had a head.
You shouldn't be doing this show. That's what he's been told.
Luckily, I don't believe I had a head injury, but there you go. Well, that's that situation anyway. Where are we then? So I said I've only seen highlights of this, and to me, look, after some of the losses that the Springboks have taken, look, this is a good comeback for them, a good result for them, or a good position to be in, and barring now, look, would they have got that last minute try to get the game to a 1 point game? So if they'd kicked their other kicks, who knows? So you can't say, oh yeah, they lost this game because of the kicks, because it was only 1 point. If they'd made one of those kicks, that would have won the game. No, that's not how it works. But they certainly were in this and competitive. LB says, yeah, that also it was scrappy. The Bok defense was good, and he tries to move his stats. Look, Argentina had 59% possession and 62% territory. So this game was played in the Springboks half. The Springboks made 170 tackles out of 195, compared to 93 out of 109 by Argentina. So nearly twice as many tackles by the Springboks there. Seriously a big shift for them. Now, scrappy is what you said, 20 turnovers by the Springboks. If you're going to make that many turnovers to only 8 by Argentina, if you're going to be giving up the ball that frequently to your opposition and not where you want to be giving it up, it's not like you've kicked it deep and said, hey, have the ball in your 22. That's turning the ball over when you've got it and you want to have it. Then you're going to be in for a long night. Now, well done to them for actually making that many errors and having so little ball and territory and still coming away with a win. Shows they really did grind this one out.
See, those stats surprised me, especially the territory one, because watching this game, this was a game where Argentina very rarely got near the Springboks line. The kicks were all taken around halfway inside the 10-meter line of each side. They never really threatened, aside from the end, to score a lot of tries. They had little passages where they would get there, but the Boks had got the penalties in the ruck, or they'll get a turnover. They just seem to have that little clutch play to finish it when they were really, really in trouble. But this is a game that I would have thought, if I was going to guess possession and territory before you said it, I thought South Africa would have won that territory battle because they were in better attacking areas for what felt like long periods of time. But I guess that transfers, so actually they got towards the line, they actually got in attacking areas to score the tries, and then would go back, whereas Argentina would pound away for a long time, like inside that 22 to halfway, around that 10-meter line. They were pitched up there quite a lot and not moving too far. Like you said, the defense was pretty good from the Boks throughout that matchup, and they took their chances. The Pumas didn't. The kicks were really the only way they looked like they were going to score tries. They didn't have too much through their attacking threats through their back line. I think the forwards played pretty well, and they were the usual boisterous self when they were out and running around the field. But yeah, South Africa took their chances, and they capped that game off too with that intercept try, which really did kind of sum that matchup of Argentina pounding away, trying to get some reward, and then just getting knocked over by something, a killer blow, a turnover, a penalty, dropping the ball, or the intercept that ultimately finished them off. And you're right, I think South Africa, when they got to that lead, they were like, we'll just defend this out, and the Pumas kind of took their chances when it got near the end, where half the team were already back in the showers by that point, and things got a bit closer than they would have liked. But yeah, I mean, when you got Evan Etzebeth running down that 5-meter line just bulldozing over players. I mean, he is a monster. Those guys are absolute monsters, and they had a lot of standout performers, but they took their chances, and I guess that's the big thing. Argentina, they kicked well in the first half. I think they only missed one kick in that first 40 minutes. I could be wrong about that, but in the second half, Canetas completely fell off the horse with his kicking. And it's funny because at the start, they're like, oh, they're going to miss Buffelli, and then he knocked 2 or 3 over, and they're like, stop talking about Buffelli. And then the second half come along where he all fell apart, and they're like, if only they picked Buffeli, Cheika's missed a trick here. Buffelli should always be in the team, and this sort of thing. So chances, I don't think they would have got that close had those kicks gone over in terms of those last couple of tries. Were kind of like South Africa just winding down the clock. But, it's an entertaining matchup. But I think for South Africa's perspective, they would have probably tested out the things they wanted to test out, because they did get pressurized in terms of long periods against their defense. They got to see quite a bit of that, how that would work. And unfortunately for the Williams situation, they didn't get to see the young guy who they'd want to actually see if he was capable of pushing on through. But an interesting performance. I had standouts for Etzebeth. I thought he was fantastic. Etzebeth and Vermeulen, I think, stood up head and shoulders above the rest for the Springboks in this. Certainly, they were strong and powerful. And I'll credit a Puma as well, Lucio Cinti, the midfielder. Oh, he's a great player, and the reason why he plays every game for them in this series, he is just quality, good attacking weapon, just good all round sort of player. And I think he was the standout for me in an Argentinian shirt.
Cool. A couple of things from the live chat. LB says that the Boks are struggling at the rucks at the moment. Well, look, they only lost 2 rucks, but they gave up. But Argentina had to put in at scrum time 10 times, which tells you knock-ons, or suggests knock-ons were an issue for the Springboks. Handling was an issue, which caused a lot of those, or a bunch of those turnovers there in that one. You're right about the kicks, though. Yeah, 1 miss in the first half, 2 miss in the second half. Which was a big part of it. And the other thing here is, again, playing style. LaRue stepping up into first receiver a lot. Now, whether that's because Nocturnal Rights says that this is destroys the confidence of the 10, or is this that actually the Springboks just don't have a 10 that they can trust to do it? I don't know. But either way, there is a problem there at 10 or at first receiver for the Springboks at the moment. And LB says that that Faf was not playing well as well. Sometimes if you've not got someone there that you're used to or that you want, then maybe that's part of that doesn't help the 9 either. But I don't know what the problem is there. But yeah, there's definitely a problem there that Pollard, I guess, is the answer for if he's back in time and if he's in form. But if not, then they have to make it sort of out with these guys that they've got now. I don't know if there's anyone else they can sort of bring in, unless there's a certain person, unless there's a stain somewhere, because there's a few of those around who used to play in that number 10 jersey, a Mornay or a Francois or a, I don't know. But hey, that really would be going back to the olden days.
So look, Zimmer frame, wheelchair.
So again, look, I still think the Springboks are going to be a threat come Rugby World Cup time, and be one of the teams. They've got another 3 games to go. They've got the Pumas again before playing Wales, and the All Blacks before that key game for them. Opening game of the World Cup for them against Scotland. So they are one of the teams that have to arrive actually at the tournament in form. I say a lot of other teams don't have to, but they do, because one of their 2 key games, which is one against Scotland and one against Ireland, in that pool games, is their first game up. So for them, it is key. The Pumas, look, they're heading in the right direction. They've beaten the Wallabies, and they've gone within 1 point of the Springboks. They're heading in the right direction, heading towards this Rugby World Cup. They've got in Cheika, they've got a head coach who's taken a team to a Rugby World Cup final before. So look, they've got a coach who knows how to do it. and a guy who I think a lot of us thought was a kind of an emotional coach, but when we've heard him when he was working on for the Australian TV channel, I've gone blank as to who they are. That has all the rugby now in Australia, but his analysis was very good tactically. So I think he's a much better tactical coach than than a lot of us gave him credit for when he was the Wallabies head coach. Look, I think Argentina, to my mind, are heading in the right direction, which as an English supporter is not good. Especially with Japan just beating Tonga. So yes, so that's sort of final comments before we wrap up on the weekend. I look forward.
Yeah, I think that game made Argentina look better than they were. There was a game where I'd always felt like the Springboks were in control of the match. They always looked like they were a step ahead and they were playing on their terms. They weren't playing to the Pumas game at all. Those last two tries, if you looked at this game and the final score was 22-7 or 22-10 or something, 22-13, whatever it was before those last couple of tries with missed kicks and what have you, you wouldn't probably be saying much about this for the Pumas. I think the scoreline just skews what it looks like from an Argentinian perspective. I think they would have wanted a lot more control over this game than they had. They had very, very little. And that second half, the second half was all Argentina. They were camped down for the whole half pretty much, and they got very little return until right at the very, very end. It looks good for them. South Africa scored 7 points in the second half, and that was an intercept try off their own line from Marnie Libok. So that tells you that was all Argentina on the attack. They scored 12 of their points? No, 8, whatever it was, 11 or so of their points in the second. So they were certainly the ones that played the game, but they weren't in control. They were still, even though Springboks didn't have the ball, they were dictating with their defense, if that makes any sense at all. They just looked safe. They looked secure. Argentina didn't look like they were going to break the line at all, which is a hard thing to try and describe. But Springboks should feel, I think they'll be taking the more comfortable feelings out of that than the Pumas. I think they've got a lot to work on their attack, especially their attack, scoring points.
Yep. As Nocturne Wright says, Dunedin match, dudes. Yes, let's talk about the Dunedin match then. As Foster says, he says, I love the words dead rubber from one perspective because it means that we've done the job in the first test, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still a test match. It's a vital cog on our little step for the Rugby World Cup. It's another chance to have a look at a few options, both in the way we play and in personnel. I think it's fair to say you will see a couple of changes. Well, yeah, I mean, there's been bugger all changes in the last two games, which has been kind of good to see that consistency. Now on Monday, for some reason in Napier, from what I've read, apparently on Monday, so he's going to fly from Dunedin to Napier to announce the Rugby World Cup squad. Why? I've got no idea. But anyway, that's what I read earlier. So the Monday after this test match is when they name the Rugby World Cup squad. So this is last chance saloon, or the last opportunity for players to put their names forward. Apparently Noah has got a what's what I'm looking for. I've gone blank. Has got a bad back, and so he has not been able. So he will not be available for this weekend. So his if he gets included in the squad, it'll be off what he's done so far. Apparently, Leicester Fainuku is available, as is Joe Moody coming back from injury. So a couple of players there available for selection if they want to. So, but in the live chat there, someone said, yeah, a couple of changes. Well, that means wholesale changes. What are you expecting? Are we expecting to see basically the every single player who hasn't had a go or who didn't play last weekend plays next weekend? Or how wholesale changes? Or are we talking about tinkering, just giving a couple of players an opportunity?
It's hard to say. I would like to see fairly wholesale changes, because injuries, and give them a game. We've done the job. Change, but not as in the whole 23. I don't want to see a whole new 23. I think just bring your bench guys on, starters to the bench, sort of swap it out, give a few guys out of the squad into the squad. Probably the key positions where you actually will need the depth in those guys. Like I'm thinking a McKenzie needs to start. As much as I really liked Roygaard's effort at the end of that test against Wallabies, Aaron Smith's starting this test for mine, and he's playing 70 minutes because last test at home, at his home ground, this is his moment. This is his game. So Roygaard, you have to wait. I don't know. You've had what do you get? 15 minutes to kind of make his claim, which is a bit short, but he'll get hopefully some more game time in this match as well. But yeah, all the positions we know, like give the other second rows a game. Scott Barrett is incredible. He's there. Give those other guys a chance to make that squad. Mix up the front rows. We know that De Groot and Lomax are our best guys now. As much as I hate to say it, Tuangafasi, give him a shot. Give Lalala a shot to start and see. Put those other guys on the bench. Just changes like that. McKenzie needs to start. And Tom Leonard-Brown will start. He come off the bench. So we'll see a bit of a change in that midfield, I think. Other positions, though, I want to see Talia stay on that left wing because I want to see him play again. Because I think he's a guy I want to see more of. So some guys will stay and see more, whereas others that I'm happy with, I'd like to see change. I think this is probably a game we'll see maybe 5 or 6. I would probably want to see 10 or 11.
So apparently Fletcher Newell is back from injury as well, and available for consideration. In there, look, Samapini Finau and Dallas McLeod are the 2 players who are in the squad who are still not capped. So it'll be interesting to see whether they get a run out or not. If they don't, then clearly they're not going to the Rugby World Cup, pretty much. And then you're looking at Topu Va'ai in as using him as a basically back row option and also lock, with Luke Jacobson and Dalton Papali'i in there. Not to I think Schmidt will direct minimal disruption close to a team like Ireland. I'm not sure. It's one of these things, isn't it? Is it? I think players like Lester Fainga'anuku, Fletcher Newell, Joe Moody, the guys coming back from injury, they will get an opportunity. Whilst I like his sentiment of play Aaron Smith for 70 minutes, no, I'm sorry, but we don't need to do that. As you say, he is one of the most important players in this team. If you're looking at kind of which player do you want to lose the least, in some ways he's the most.
He'll still start.
The most required there. Fine, but take him off at half time or soon after half time. Let him get his standing ovation as he leaves the pitch.
I'll compromise.
I look. There's only so many games left. A couple of changes to give those injured players a run out, plus maybe 1 or 2 others that you're thinking of taking. Otherwise, I would go with consistency now and just this is our team and we're playing it from now through to winning the Rugby World Cup, and just pray that injuries aren't going to happen effectively.
That's not how it works.
Maybe it's not, but at the moment, I want to give Geordie Barrett and Rieko Ioane as much time as possible together. Get as much
I would give them more time together.
But again, also, I mean, how much time has Richie played outside? How much time has Geordie played outside of Richie Mo'unga? How much time has Richie Mo'unga had Geordie outside him? 5 games, if that, maybe. So again, just give them as many games as possible to get those combinations right. Now, bring in a Lester Fainga'anuku on the left or the right wing for Will Jordan or Mark Talia, no big deal. Bring Damien on for Bowden Barrett at fullback. That's fine. I'm not too fussed about that. but that core of but otherwise, again, how many times has say Tamiti Williams and Fletcher Newell scrummed with Samansoni Takilaho? Give these combinations. If that's going to be a bench, have them on the bench and let them come on together, and just get that cohesion, get Plan A right, and make sure Plan A will win rather than Plan B, C, and D. Yeah, I get it. Yes, Beaver won a Rugby World Cup. We're on fly half number 25. Fine. Yes, I understand that can happen. But also Dan Carter can be doing drop goals in the final as well, as we saw 4 years later. So, get combination A working. Yes, that leaves massive question marks. Who is the replacement for Geordie Barrett? Who is the replacement for Iko Wani? I haven't got a clue. Maybe it is Antonio Brown and Braden Ennell, who have never played together.
That's the
maybe
problem,
it will come back to bite.
That's the risk. Yep. I don't know. I think there's a lot of options. I think if they go with what you say, the changes will be early and they'll be rather wholesale, like you say, half time, 45 minutes, especially like front rows, and those sort of cluster changes will be all very early, as much time as you can get. But yeah, I see your point in keeping this together. I would like to see, you're right about the midfield. I think that's an area that certainly does need a bit more of it. I think it's fair to see a guy like Luke Jacobson get a bit more time as well. Just hasn't, such a highly regarded player, just hasn't had that opportunity. But I think the wings we kind of need to play three wingers, because we need to see three players to Leicester's back. Because I still want to see more of Talia. Will Jordan's been out with that injury off and on so much that his rugby's been pretty fractured. And now you got Leicester coming back as well. It's like, Will Jordan full back, Leicester on a wing, Talia, Bone Barrett gets a rest. Then you go back to, you're changing too much of your combinations. You're messing with that 10-15 sort of combination of those guys moving around. So do you go, that's what I mean. Who's in Foster's head about how they want to play? Consistency or a little bit extra, 40, 50 minutes for your depth to play out against... Let's be honest, it's a good Wallabies team all the same. And they're not complete garbage, although they've played like it. They're still a very high-quality side. So you're getting a good practice for free, really, aren't you?
Sure, look, and a combination of Scott Barrett with either Retallick or Whitelock. Look, he's played lots with those guys.
Yes.
That combination is not needed, right?
No.
So that's fine. So that's a combination that I'm happy to rotate through and bring in other players. But it's where combinations are not known. But so Pini Finau and Dallas McLeod. Well, look, guys, you've got the kit. Well done. Sorry, you've not got the cap, but you got the kit.
Yeah, like Caleb Clark, take your free shirts and go home.
Sorry, but Caleb Clark is going to the Rugby World Cup.
I know. I can dream. Play him though, and he might get injured.
I don't necessarily agree with it, but but I think he's going.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
definitely.
The Wallabies don't have a tight head. Because a couple of weaker scrummages to replace injured guys. Like, I feel, and that's that position.
To add anything about the Wallabies game is that what were they thinking with Tupou? Like when he took that back injury or whatever, rib or whatever they thought it was, leaving him on for so long, or him trying to stay on for so long when he was clearly hurting, and it was detrimental, and that's what caused him to do that tackle that got him the yellow card. It was just the snowball effect of things going from bad to worse. He should have been just hoiked straight away. I know they didn't have the replacement because he was the replacement, but that could have made an injury 10 times worse by that extra 10 minutes or 8 minutes or whatever it was he played. I think that's poor. That's kind of where you got to kind of take over and say, no, buddy, get off. Don't argue.
Yeah, totally agree. Especially in the Rugby World Cup year. I mean, generally, look, I don't like players playing through injury, full stop. Now, I'll probably get told, look, they're always playing semi-injured, blah, blah, blah. Sure, but when you see those kind of things, like get them off the pitch, assessed, and deal with it during the week. I think I gone blank as a player that played like with a broken arm for. I think it was probably a Martin Onu. I think got praised for playing with a broken arm for a whole game. And like, no, if you've broken your arm, get off. You could do a lot of damage to that if it gets hit again. Let's stop treating them like that being a hero move and say it's a bad move. As Nocturne, it's very sad for Alan Alatoa, absolutely very sad. And you got to feel for that, feel for the guy. So as far as the airplane goes, I think we'll see Luke Jake. We've already said De Groot, Williams, Lomax, Newell. Maybe not Newell because he's just come back from injury. We'll see how he goes. And then one of Offa or Neopo going in. The hookers pick themselves. I think all 5 locks will go because I think we'll have Kane, Sevilla, Frizzell, Jacobson, and Papali'i as your Lucy's. The scrum halves, again, it's the 3 that are there. Cam Roygaard said nothing wrong to say, hey, bring in Brad Webber or Falau Fakatava. Richie and Damien are there for in the centres. I guess I put Anton Brown there, which is perhaps a bit ambitious, but I think it'll be Rico, Anton, Geordie, and Braden Ennell at the 4. Obviously, Dallas McLeod is coming too late to the picture, and I don't know if Jack Goodhue did enough in the Japan test. Maybe he did. If he did, then I expect to see him back in the squad or around the squad for this weekend.
It's a late call, isn't it, to drop the guy you've had for like the last month of tournaments, to drop him out for a guy that's played, 2 games of little tour matches? That's harsh. That's harsh.
Yep, it is. But you're looking at those. It's in some ways it's been easier to pick the airplane this year than any other year than 4 years ago. Having that All Blacks 15 made it very clear as to who was in, who was out, who was, and then your back 3. I think it's going to be Jordan, Talia, Barrett, Clark, plus probably Faianuku, depending on how he goes this weekend. But it might be Nariki. Sorry, so it might be Nalrea. Has he done enough with the back injury he's got now? We'll just have to wait and see. Or actually, maybe all 3 go. He's suddenly looking at how many spaces I've got in the squad.
Problem solved.
So yeah, problem solved. Yes, exactly. Or maybe they just take 5 back 3s and take 6 props, which is what I would do. Lots of props, folks. Props get hurt, and you have to play 6 of them. Play 4 of them every single game. Yeah, we saw that the week. Yeah.
Case in point.
Cool.
Goodness.
Any final comments about what's going on this weekend, or anything else really, for that matter?
Oh, geez, no, I think I've talked about enough, haven't I? God, gone on. It's been a big weekend of rugby. It's been quite good. I am interested to see what's going to happen now that the competition sort of side of things is officially finished now. So even though teams, we all knew that they were, especially near the end, looking towards building and developing these things, not really caring so much about competitions, but now it's officially over, isn't it? It is officially over. They can look forward, and what's going to change? What are they going to do? Teams, are they going to keep the A teams? Are they going to try and build the depth? That sort of stuff's going to be quite interesting. So, yeah, certainly another good weekend. Hopefully no more people get broken. Had enough broken people. Sorry, bad weekend.
Well, not trying to do a score prediction. Look, it's very difficult to do a prediction when you don't actually know what the goals of the
28-13.
28-13. Wow.
Put it at the TAB.
So you're going for a 15-point win. Look, yeah, I think I'm going for something. I'm looking for a 2-3 score. So the Northern Right's gone for a 20-point gap. Yeah, that sort of 14 to 15, that sort of 15 to 20 points, I think, is where it's going to be for the All Blacks.
And you don't know what the Wallabies are going to do either.
True, but it's a lot for the Wallabies
completely
to turn around
change.
1 week.
Yeah. So who knows?
So yeah. But let's be honest, Eddie Jones doesn't want a sort of 60-point game. As you say, one of the things that he doesn't need right now is, or one of the only problem he's got at the moment is that losing mentality. It's felt they've lost every game. Mm-hmm. We understand he's a new head coach. He's got all these kind of. It's all about the World Cup. It was never about the Rugby Championship for him. He had no time running into this. So, but as you said, he doesn't want to write the World Cup with only losses on the ledger. Now, he's going to lose this weekend. We all know that. All right, it's going to happen. The problem is, what he doesn't want though is a 50, 60 point drubbing. It was bad enough losing 738 last weekend. So I can't see him doing wholesale changes. I think he's got to decide, right, my squad is this, or this is my team. I'm going with it.
I think the 7 is more damaging to him than the 38 was.
Yes. And I do think that's the Aussies' problem, has been scoring points rather than defending.
You got a lot of good players. Continue.
Yeah. With only 12 points against 12 against South Africa, 31 against Argentina. So they score a few against Argentina, but then again, that included an intercept try. It also included that sort of miracle Nick White off the back of the scrum, turning one way this way to score. They weren't created tries. So 14 points were from that. The other, what does that make it? The other 17 points, you could say, came from perhaps normal play, and then 7 points this weekend. So you're right. I think the scoring side is the Wallabies' problem at the moment, rather than necessarily the defence, even though they have given up 43 points, 34 points, and 38 points. So,
it's
you can argue it's both, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they've got good players though. Like Nwanga Tawazi, I thought was incredible again for the Wallabies. Made a lot of breaks, but like someone said in the comments earlier, he's all alone. Like he makes those breaks, and he couldn't offload if he wanted to because there's no one else there. He often loses the ball because there's no one else there, and there's a lack of support. I've kind of been disappointed with how good their midfield is. Yet it's not performing. Like I don't think we're seeing enough out of Karevi or Pataya. Okay, that's harsh on Pataya because that was his first game back. But those guys that are in there, it's Karevi, I think, for me. Just not doing enough back rows and support. Just things like that. That's what the problem is. I think the outside backs are doing damage, but they're just not getting the support and the flow-on effects from that break. So they're getting a break, getting up the field, and then they're losing the ball, giving away a penalty, knocking it on. It's not continuous.
And there is a plethora of rugby this weekend. We've also got Scotland versus France, Wales versus England, Romania versus the USA, Ireland versus Italy. Obviously, the Argentina versus South Africa, where I think South Africa will put up another win as well. Uruguay versus Namibia, and Chile versus the Argentinian 15. So there is a lot of rugby this weekend. I will not be watching all of it. I've even missed out the Samoa Tonga game and the Japan Fiji game as well. So there is a hell of a lot of rugby this weekend, and you're right. I will not get to see it all, but we will bring you at least the results and talk about those from when we go on. Nocturnal Light says Eddie game plan is rubbish. He doesn't have the power of the England pack to implement his schemes. Look, one of the things I'll say about Eddie is he can adapt to the players. He didn't have the power of the England pack for his Japan team either. I think he got some good results from them, didn't he? So I don't think Eddie has. He's not a Nick White. This is how I play. I think he can change tactics according to players. So we'll see what he can get out of them. He's just had no time with these players. Let's be blunt. Thank you very much, Steve. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and enjoy the rugby this coming weekend.